What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Haunted Beard. Thank you for joining me today. Well, it has been a while since I've done a franchise series of reviews, and I wanted to get back at it and do another franchise. So, today I'm going to kick things off with reviewing the Final Destination series. And like normal, I'm going to do an individual review for every movie in the series, all 5 of them, and then I'll cap things off with doing a ranking video. So, without further ado, let's jump into from 2000 Final Destination. Here we go. You're probably familiar with these movies, as it follows a group of characters who figure out that death itself is after them, and it continues to kill the characters off one by one in more and more elaborate and ridiculous ways. So the original here starts things off and introduces us to the main character, Alex, played by Devon Sawa, and he is preparing to go to Paris, France for his senior trip. And he goes to the airport, they get on the plane, and he has this premonition of a plane crash, freaks out, is escorted off the plane along with a few other students and one of the teachers. And of course, the plane takes off, and his premonition turned out to be true as the plane explodes right after takeoff. And then from that point on, all hell breaks loose as these kids have to figure out how to navigate and avoid death itself coming after them. Now, the first 20 minutes of this movie are actually pretty good, and I think they're pretty effective at least. And you know, you've got the whole premonition dream sequence where Alex is on the plane, and they give you the whole plane crash sequence, which I think is actually done pretty well. It's predominantly practical effects. Everything comes across as pretty believable. There's a little bit of green screen in there that you can tell a little bit. When the fire breaks out, it's a little bit of CGI, but nothing too bad. And so it starts off with this kind of this really interesting concept that this guy's got this premonition and sees this horrific plane crash, and then it turns out to be true. And, you know, from that point on, we're just like, you know, what the crap is going on here? This is crazy. This is wild. And so I think the opening 20 minutes, like I said, are pretty good, pretty effective. They definitely hook you in with that opening plane crash sequence. And for the most part, I'm on board. And yes, I understand that the main concept is kind of ridiculous, but just sort of the craziness of it is fun and entertaining. But after this opening first act of the movie is kind of where I really start to struggle a little bit with Final Destination. And it's largely due to the tone of this movie. Like I said, that first opening sequence plays itself pretty dark and brooding and serious, and it does a pretty effective job with that. However, this is a movie that's really hard to take seriously throughout the rest of it.
Why so serious?
Because, again, the whole point here is that death comes after them, which is, of course, silly, but the kills here are so ridiculous and over the top, and I know they're like that by design, but the movie just continually takes itself very seriously and plays it off very just straightforward and straight-laced. And it's just hard to take it that way because it's a movie that I feel like it needs to be more self-aware. I wrote down in my notes as I was watching it, and I was like, am I laughing with it or am I laughing at it? And I feel like the majority of the time I'm laughing at it. This is a movie that it just doesn't seem self-aware because it needs to be aware of how ridiculous this whole concept is. If you're going to execute the kill sequences that are in this movie, you've got to do it with a little bit of humor. It's just so hard to take it as seriously as the film plays it, and I just feel like it just didn't really understand its own tone. And there's a few examples of this spread throughout all the movie. And even in the opening 20 minutes, which I think is the best part of the entire movie, it opens up, he's talking to his dad at the dinner table before they goes to the airport, and his dad is like, oh, you've got your whole life ahead of you. And it's just like this kind of cheesy line. It's like, oh yeah, does he? It's like, oh, he has no idea what's coming. And it's just like, but it's like they play it so straightforward. And then he gets to the airport, and this like Hare Krishna guy comes up to him, and he's like, death is not the end, and hands him like a tract or something like that. And it's just like, okay, come on. But again, it's like it's played so seriously. It's like, does anybody not see how ridiculous this is? And then you've got the memorial service for all the students who died in the plane crash. And it's just this very serious and emotional moment, and everybody's crying and it's so sad and everything. And then you get Sean William Scott comes up to Devon Sawa, and he's like asking him, he's like, he thinks he's psychic now, and he's like, should I ask this girl out or should I not? And it's just like, what is happening here?
I asked how Cynthia passed her. Will she say no? Okay. Yeah.
I can't take Sean William Scott seriously. He's just a complete and total goof throughout the whole movie, but it doesn't seem like they're really trying to play him for comedic effect. It's like he's trying to be serious, but it just doesn't come off that way at all. But listen, the whole thing is not a total loss, as I do get quite a bit of entertainment and enjoyment out of the kill scenes in here. And the first one is the kill of Todd as he accidentally strangles himself on a clothesline wire in the shower. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's entertaining and fun for me to watch, and I enjoy it because of how ridiculous it is. But again, I kind of still feel like I'm more laughing at the movie than laughing with it. We get a scene not long after this where Alex meets up with Ali Larter's character, Clear, and she's supposed to be kind of this very sort of artsy-fartsy type person, and she's explaining her sculpture to him, and it's just like, what on earth is she even talking about? It's just like so pretentious and ridiculous. It's just hilarious.
No, like you, the sculpture doesn't even know what or why it is. It's reluctant to take form, and you're creating an absolute but incomprehensible attraction.
So anyways, after this, Alex and Clear end up going to the morgue to investigate Todd's body to find out if they can figure out what in the world's going on here. And they bump into Tony Todd as he gets a little cameo in this, and it's one of the better scenes in the movie. Tony Todd just kind of carries this nice screen presence about him, and this scene is largely just used for exposition, as Tony Todd really just tells him what on earth is going on. It's like you've awakened death, you've upset him, and he had a plan in motion to kill you, but you avoided the plan, and now you got to figure out how to continue avoiding the plan so death doesn't kill you as well. And so it's kind of this cool scene, I guess, and it's I guess a better way to do exposition than typically, and so just because of Todd's performance. But again, we have this scene that's played off very seriously, and then like we get to the end of it, and Tony Todd's there, and he's pulling out instruments out of Todd's dead body right in front of these two people. And it's so ridiculous. And then this like blood starts squirting out for a second, and they're both sitting there horrified. And it's just like the most ridiculous thing that I can't help but laugh. But again, it just plays it totally serious.
And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy.
Okay then.
After this, we get a scene where all the characters who are still alive kind of converge into this little downtown area. And then we get just a great, shocking, surprising death as Terry backs into the road and then just gets absolutely pasted by this bus. And it's just pretty fantastic.
Then you can just drop fucking dead.
But then after this, I can't help but laugh at the very next scene is Alex putting Alka-Seltzer into a glass of water. And to me, it's like, it's just the most like randomly unexpected thing. It's just like, he literally just seen one of his classmates get absolutely demolished by a bus. And it's like, yeah, I've got some bad indigestion. I'm going to need some seltzer. It's so random and hilarious to me. I just can't help but laugh at it. Then we get to about the hour point, and we get the kill scene of the teacher, Mrs. Luton. And this is, I think, the best. It's certainly my favorite kill scene in the entire movie. Let me just take you real quickly through the fantastic sequence of events for her character's kill. As she starts off and pours some vodka into a mug, which is cracked. She then takes the cracked mug over to the computer, which is dripping vodka on the floor the entire time. And then some vodka gets into the top of the monitor and drips down into the computer and like fries the motherboard. Which causes the monitor screen to explode, sending large glass shards into her neck. So now she's profusely bleeding out of her neck. And now because of the computer monitor explosion, a small fire has started in her home. This small fire now trails the dripped vodka on the floor and trails all the way back to the vodka bottle, which that then explodes. Creating an even bigger fire in her home. She is now on the floor, and she reaches up to grab a towel on the kitchen countertop, but the towel was placed over a knife block. So when she pulls the towel down, it drops these knives on top of her, and the big old butcher knife pierces her chest. So what ends up happening is Sean William Scott tells the FBI guys who have been tailing Alex, because they're very suspicious of him, that he's having all these premonitions of who's going to die next. But he tells them he sees Alex running out of Mrs. Luton's house right before it explodes. And so they go after him, and Claire's like, hey, I can take you to my father's cabin to hide you away. So they're all driving in the car to get away. We get another great line from Sean William Scott.
Please, tell me I'm gonna get to see the Jets win a Super Bowl.
They still haven't won one. Sorry, buddy. And then we get another actually pretty fun sequence where the car stalls out on the train tracks. And this scene's pretty fun. It's got some pretty good tension to it as Alex pulls Carter away from the car at the last second before the train smashes through his car. And then, of course, there's a shard of metal that the train kicks up. And poor old Sean William Scott gets his kappa detated from his head. And it's just another one of those shocking, surprising moments that is just a lot of fun. So Alex is hiding out in the cabin, and the FBI guys convince Clear to tell them where he is. So they show up at the cabin, and Alex escapes in a canoe. When's the last time you've seen a character make a getaway in a canoe? I don't know. But anyways, he goes and goes back to Clear's house. And so now we see Clear at her house, and like death is just unleashing the gauntlet after this poor girl. She's in her house and things are exploding, and there's like electricity and all sorts of craziness happen as she's trying to get out of there. And one of the things about this movie that I just feel like is so random and like out of left field is like this all of a sudden come from nowhere romance that sort of develops between Alex and Clear's character, as right after Sean William Scott gets his head taken off, she like calls him babe. And then during this scene where she's trapped in the car and like this power line is sparking electricity and craziness, and then Alex has to go over there and like, you know, get it off the car so she can escape. And, you know, he looks at her very seriously and then just delivers this gem of a line.
I'll always be with you.
So Alex decides he's going to sacrifice himself to save Clear, and he saves her, and he ends up surviving himself as well. And then we get just the final few minutes of the movie, which cuts to 6 months later, and the last of the three, Carter, Alex, and Clear, finally get to go to Paris, as they finally think they have avoided death altogether, but of course they haven't. And then you get this crazy little scene in Paris where this gigantic marquee sign swings off this building, as Carter pushes Alex out of the way, and right as it's about to take Carter out, the film cuts to credits, and that's it.
That just skipped me. So who's next?
And it's a pretty unsatisfying ending, in my personal opinion. But anyways, that's Final Destination for you. Like I do with these, I usually give these movies a grade. And this is one that's kind of weird because, like, honestly, like if I'm trying to be objective, it's probably like a 4 out of 10 movie. But the entertainment value of it is probably like a 7 out of 10 movie. And if I was to like grade the kills, the kills are pretty fun. The kills are probably you know, a 7 out of 10 as well. So I don't know what all that means, but those are just some of my thoughts on Final Destination. So that's all I got for you. Up next, obviously, we're continuing the series. We'll go with Final Destination 2. Hit me up down in the comments, though. Would love to hear your thoughts about Final Destination. It's an interesting time, so I have some fun here and there with it, and I enjoy kind of laughing at it here and there as well. So that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. If you like videos like this, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.